G'day, and welcome to another Madcap music review. I'm Mad Capsules, and today we're taking a look at the new death metal album titled Hidden History of the Human Race from Blood Incantation. And who is Blood Incantation? Well, they are a US death metal band that formed in 2011 and released their first full length, which was titled Starspawn, in 2016 via Dark Descent Records. However, I don't really feel they're a death metal band in the traditional sense. Taking a very original angle, cosmic or space-themed style. Some have called them progressive. I don't think it's necessarily the right word, but neither is psychedelic, but it has both of those feels. For a band that's doing what Blood Incantation is doing, and effectively carving a new path, I guess it is understandable that it is somewhat hard to describe. Nevertheless, Starspawn became one of my favourite albums on discovering it late last year, and as someone who is very, very picky when it comes to death metal, that's really saying something. At least I think so. So why did I choose to review this album? I think that last comment says it all, really. When I heard what the band was doing on Starspawn, I kept a close eye on them ever since. When I discovered that they were releasing a new album, I knew I had to absolutely get it. And although I was initially not necessarily impressed by the cover art, it's really grown on me and suits the content so well. Then when I learned that it was actually created by Bruce Pennington, who is an artist that's well known for his work on famous sci-fi literary works, well, I was sold. Let's get on into the review. So, if you judge a death metal band by how unreadable their name is, then Blood Incantation is up there with the greats. I mean, just look at this. Anyway, with only 4 tracks and a runtime of 36 minutes, there's no denying that this is a short album. In some ways, it feels a bit like an EP. And given 3 of the songs are only 5 to 7 minutes in length, and the final song is 18 minutes, it also feels kind of unbalanced as well. However, it's also not really an album that will necessarily have any singles. There's nothing here that will have mass appeal at first listen, and nothing that will really suit radio play. It's an album that really wants to be listened to in its entirety and in this specific order, really, I think. Does that make it right? No, but it's not wrong either. It's just a different approach to death metal. Does that make it genius? Also no, if I'm honest. This album will really appeal to many listeners, but it's not without its issues. So, the first track, which is entitled Slave Species of the Gods, is the most standard death metal track on the album. It doesn't take many original paths, and it merely includes a bunch of heavy riffs, pounding drums, a deeply voiced growl, but it's a great start to the album. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and overall it has a real metal vibe to it from start to finish. Here's a bit of a taster. This seems to be replicated in the next track, but what is immediately different here is that there's somehow more of a groove to it. Yes, there's groove in a death metal album. Where it really shines, though, and the reason that this next track, which is called The Giza Power Plant, is my favourite track on the album, is the switch to an Eastern European vibe, which matches the title of the track, and this then breaks down into a very Doom-like style, and you know how much I love this kind of thing. Check it out. Damn, huh? The track continues as a death metal track, of course, and maintains the Eastern European feel as part of the groove, but it does go through a few changes, and it's just a really good overall track. The next track, though, takes a sharp detour from death metal territory. It's credited by many as an instrumental. It's called Inner Paths to Outer Space, but the use of sampling throughout this track, as well as the final deep growl towards the end, means it never really feels like an instrumental. It's a strange track. However, it doesn't feel like a death metal track either, feeling very much more like a progressive metal track at times. Still pretty heavy, It slowly grows over time like a bolero and eventually plateaus into a rolling cacophony. It's heavy and it's really good. And this leads us into the final track. It's titled Awakening from the Dream of Existence to the Multidimensional Nature of Our Reality. And in brackets, Mirror of the Soul. Yes, it's a mouthful. And not only is the title long, but the track is also long, running at about 18 minutes. And it's really different to the first three tracks, as is to be expected, I guess, but it still suits the album overall, but not at first listen. It just doesn't feel right against the other three tracks. It's not an easy track to listen to. It demands your attention, but struggles to keep it. I've heard others suggest it's actually 2 or 3 death metal tracks glued together as one, and in some ways they're right. The first 5 minutes are completely different to the last 5 minutes, that's for sure, and there are a few changes in between, but that's kind of the point. The song is meant to take you on a journey, but I guess the issue is that Spotify, for example, doesn't have the lyrics, and neither does Bandcamp, for that matter, if you buy the digital track. And while I expect that the physical copies of the album will come with lyrics, it's really damn hard to see the thread running through the final track unless you're simply prepared to trust the band, and really the thread that does go through there are the lyrics. But I will say, after a few listens, I began to feel the groove of the track, and while I still think it's a bit of a miss overall, it is a pretty good track. And it does have some really good moments, especially as it slows towards the end into a calm completion. And it does take you on a journey, but it's a difficult ride, and maybe that's the point too. Do I have any recommended tracks? Not really. There's only 4 tracks on the album, so go listen to the whole damn thing. But for me, I'd have to say my favourite track is the Giza Power Plant, but I also really enjoy how you can feel the energy build in the track Inner Paths to Outer Space. Have a listen now. Overall, I'd have to say that there'll likely be some out there that will refuse to like this album simply because it's different. Maybe they think it's a bit hipster death metal. It's in a genre of its own, really. It's a little like Doom, but it sounds a lot like death metal, and it doesn't meet the requirements to be categorized as death doom because it's just too fast. Others will hail it as a genius for the same reasons. I sit somewhere in between, and I guess time will tell whether or not it's going to be a classic album. Personally, I loved the album. I really did. It's not perfect, but it's a great follow-up to Starspawn. I can't wait to see what the guys do next. I will enjoy listening to it many, many more times in the coming years, I believe. So as a result, I'm going to give it 4 Mad Capsules, and I recommend you check it out if you like this kind of thing. Now, not long ago, I did mention that maybe some people will think that it's hipster death metal, and really, if you look at the guys who are Blood Incantation, it's far from hipster death metal. Definitely not hipster death metal, but it is somewhat arty and it is different. It does take you on a journey. So I really encourage you to check out Blood Incantation. See what you think. I love the guys. Check it out. Let me know what your thoughts are. Anyway, that's the end of this review. I do have another one coming up either later in the week or early next week. Let me know if there's anything you'd like me to review. I do prefer to review newer albums. Let me know how I'm going. If there's anything you think I should change in my reviews, add, remove, whatever. It's all a learning experience to me. But thank you for hanging around, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye.